All right. Good morning, everyone. Everyone can hear me okay? Awesome. Christine has also been a very important person in my life. She's been a person who's really encouraged me in my spiritual direction. She's also encouraged me in my preaching. And I like to say that I've come up in the Christine Lee School of Preaching. And if you, I don't know if this is true anymore, but if those of us who know her from her days at All Angels, like Christine would always try to bring in one song and sing it during her sermon from her childhood. And so I would like to start this morning singing a song that is the only reason why I'm singing it today is because it has the words of Jesus that we heard in the gospel today. But, you know, she said I was game, and I will practically do anything for a laugh. So would you like me to sing a song for you this morning? All right. If you know it, sing it out, all right? I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will never die. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live a new life. Thank you. I also, in the Christine Lee School of Sermonizing, you're also allowed to cry whenever you want. And so I'm just warning you right now, there might be some tears shed just as the storm passing through. But I'm really delighted to be here and to get to talk with you and to preach for you this morning. So let's pray. God, I thank you that you hold both our deepest sorrows and our deepest joys in your amazing and large embrace. And I thank you for the privilege of standing here and talking a bit about what you've been doing in my life. I pray you'd bless it, and it would bless those who hear it this morning. We love you, Jesus, and it's in your name we pray. Amen. So, when Christine asked me to join in your summer preaching series and told me that my assignment was to talk about a passage that was deeply meaningful to me, I knew exactly which one I wanted to preach on immediately. And it was one of those things where it kind of startled me because I was like, really? That one, Joanna? I mean, you're not going to try out some other passages? You're not going to kick the tires on some other parables? You really going to do this one? But I really couldn't shake it. And so here we are today, sitting with Martha and with Jesus soon after the death of Lazarus in the town of Bethany a long, long time ago. The first thing I want to do is to talk about Martha a bit, to say that I am so glad, so glad that Martha shows up in the Bible. I admire her faith so much, and actually I think she's a bit of a badass. I'm wondering if this might be the first sermon any of you have ever heard about how cool Martha is, because historically Martha has gotten a pretty bad rap. She gets compared to her sister Mary a lot. I'm one of 4 sisters, so I know exactly how that goes. And if you grew up in the evangelical circles that I did back in the 80s, there was somewhat of an implicit tension between being like Mary or being like Martha. And it almost always felt like being Mary was where everyone wanted you to land, you know, because there's this story in Luke 7 where Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus, and she's sitting there and she's quiet and she's listening to him. Whereas, you know, Martha kind of gets labeled in that story as a little bossy and a little demanding. And Jesus has some words for her, and it feels kind of like she missed out. Now, I'm just curious, show of hands, anyone else hear that reading of Mary and Martha before? All right, yes, we have several. Okay, so you all know what I'm talking about. But it's really it's too bad, really, because just like all stereotypes and all categorizations, it really robbed me of seeing who she was. So let me tell you who I think Martha is. First of all, I think Martha is likely one of the many women who supported and enabled Jesus's ministry. I think she was a disciple. I think she was head of a large enough household to provide hospitality for many guests. And I think Jesus considered her and Lazarus and Mary people of peace. It's this group of people that Jesus, when he was sending out his disciples, said, go to a town and find a person of peace and stay with them. And I think Jesus thought Martha was a person of peace. So Martha was part of the ministry team. She had some influence, she had some power, she had some authority, she had some intelligence, and she was a disciple of Jesus. So I think that's who Martha is. or Martha was. I think it's was at this point. Yep. And but I think John actually says more than that here, because John says that Jesus loved Martha. And he calls them in this passage, he calls them friends. And I love thinking about Jesus having friends. And I love thinking that Jesus was deep and dear friends with this family, with Mary and with Martha and with Lazarus. And so it all makes sense to me that Jesus not only valued Martha as a disciple and a partner in ministry, but also as a valued friend. I think Jesus knew her. I think he loved her. I think he spent time with her. And they were all close enough that in this parable, in this story, that when Lazarus got sick, Martha and Mary sent word to Jesus and said, "The one you love is sick." And I think that meant that they were really expecting that he would come. So when I describe Martha that way, isn't she kind of cool? Isn't she a bit relatable? I mean, I feel like I relate to her. I deeply relate to her because I feel I am a disciple of Jesus and I am part of his ministry team in a way. And I am a woman of some influence and some authority and some intelligence in my little sphere of the world. And what's more, I am an old friend of Jesus at this point. We are old friends. I have been talking to him for a long time, and I know that he loves me, and I know that he sees me. I know this. But just because Martha is relatable is not the only reason why I admire Martha. I admire Martha in this passage because when she hears that Jesus has finally arrived, she is out the door and she is going directly to speak with and to be with Jesus. And she's doing that in the midst of the devastation of the loss of her brother. And what I can only imagine is deep, deep disappointment that Jesus did not arrive in time. Still, Martha goes straight to Jesus. Now, I don't know about you, but I find myself these days dealing with a lot of feelings of anxiety and anger and grief and disappointment. I feel all those things about the state of the world. I feel that all these things about the state of our politics. I feel all these things sometimes about the state of our church. And that's just like the big macro level, right? Then there's the things that happen in my life, my griefs, my disappointments, my wondering if my friends are going to be okay. I'm wondering if my friends' kids are going to be okay, wondering if my family is going to be okay. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that's a life for a lot of us right now. And so Martha's grief about her situation and her disappointment in Jesus's lack of action is so relatable to me. I am often wondering, Jesus, what is taking you so long? And this is why I admire Martha, because she took her faith in one hand and her grief and her disappointment in the other, and she went straight to Jesus. Now, I think Martha does this for a couple of reasons. I think Martha is a very direct person. I would call her a heat-seeking missile. She is a woman of action. She speaks her mind. I think that's one of the reasons why she went straight to Jesus. But I also think she wants to be with the one who sees her, who knows her, who loves her. She wants to be with her friend. She wants to be with her teacher. She wants to be with her rabbi. And I also think she knows that Jesus is a person of deep authority and deep healing. And if anyone can do something about this, Jesus can. So I might be wrong about all these things about Martha, but that's why I find myself going to Jesus these days with my faith in my one hand and my disappointment and my grief in the other. I go there because I need to be with the one who sees me, who knows me, who really, really loves me, and who has been working for my good all my life, even though sometimes I really can't see it. And I also need to be with the one who has the wisdom and the goodness and the power to set the world to right. So these days I try to come and be with Jesus, to bring all that I'm feeling and all that I'm carrying fully into his presence and laying it before him. And sometimes I just rest in his love and seek the comfort of the one who really knows me and loves me, who sees me. And that is a great, profound gift, to be exactly who you are and be accepted by the one who sees you, who knows you, and who loves you. But then I also try to let Jesus's challenge to Martha to challenge me. I love the dialogue here in John 11. Martha runs out the door, meets Jesus, and says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died," which is both a statement of faith and a statement of disappointment. It is both. And then she says the most remarkable thing. She says, "But I know, even now, that God will give you whatever you ask," which is just such an open-hearted, open-handed stance of faith. Jesus, I know God listens to you and I trust you, whatever you think. And then Lazarus says, "Martha, your brother will rise again." And Martha says, yes, I know someday the world is going to be put to rights. It's down there someday. And this is where I find Jesus' word of challenge to Martha and to me. He says to Martha and he says to me, "Don't look over there. Don't look over there. Look at me. Your hope is not in someday. Your hope is in me, because I am the resurrection and I am the life. I hold the power of life and death and life after death in my hands." And he asks, "Do you believe this? Joanna, where are you putting your hope? Will you trust me to be all the things that I say that I am? Will you believe me when I say that I am so full of life and so full of love that even death cannot stop me?" So one of the examples I have of this in my life was during the 2020 election, a time of great anxiety and anger and grief and disappointment and confusion for me, for many, I would say. And I was sitting there doom scrolling. It was sometime between after the election and before they called it. And I was just sitting there watching CNN, and my heart rate was just going higher and higher and higher. My anxiety was going higher, higher and higher. And I was doom scrolling on my phone as well. And finally, at one point you just kind of decide that this is insanity and I just need to turn the whole thing off. And so I did. And belatedly, but nevertheless, I went to Jesus and I just let him have it. Told him how I was feeling. I told him all the anxiety I was carrying, about how I'm mad at the state of the world, about how I'm mad at the state of our church. I'm worried about all these things. It was such a gift just to tell him. I was allowed to be exactly who I was in that moment and be received and be loved and be known and just sit there and go, that is what's true for me right now. And then, I kid you not, these words came out of nowhere and I would never have thought of them on my own. And so this is why I believe it was from the Lord. I heard the words of Mary's Magnificat. And the words that came to me, and I didn't even know them. I think I had to go look them up. I heard these words. "He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the mighty from their thrones and exalted those of humble estate. He has filled the hungry with good things and has sent the rich away empty." And in that moment, Jesus was taking my eyes off of CNN, eyes off of New York Times, off of my feelings, and setting them on him and his kingdom and his agenda and his power and his beauty and his glory. And he said, Joanna, do you believe this? And I didn't know the outcome. Nothing changed in the world outside. But I knew the comfort of being seen and heard. I knew the comfort of being heard by the one person who can do something about these things. And I was reminded and challenged to remember about what God is doing in the world, even when we see it and when we don't see it. And I felt God, and just knowing, yes, Lord, I believe this. I want to believe this. Help me believe. So this is why I think Martha is a total badass, because she says to Jesus in that moment, yes, I believe. And then she follows it up with the confession of faith that is the confession of faith in the book of John. And all the other gospels, it's Peter. But in John, it's Martha. And she says, yes, I believe. I believe you are the Christ, the Son of God who has come into the world. And my friends, she believed that without seeing. She believed it without seeing. Because the critique of the sermon obviously is that, yeah, Joanna, but Lazarus gets raised like 20 minutes later, maybe. I mean, it's right there. And I love it when God shows up. I love it when God does amazing things like that. I love it when prayers are answered and like the miraculous is before us. I love those moments. I celebrate them. I have them in my own life. I think they are so deeply good and rich. But today I wanted to just invite some space and some time to sit in this other space, because I feel like we're there a lot. And I feel like this is a space of deep, sacred moments of bringing yourself to God, of being with Jesus, of listening to him as his challenge to us. That is the space I think we spend a lot of our lives in. I want us to be encouraged by this woman named Martha, who said, yes, I believe. So I think I'm going to stop there. I'm going to invite us into a little time of personal reflection. I hear that's what you guys do here, so awesome. And I just want to ask you to just spend a moment and ask, you can simply ask or just excavate a little bit what might have been the most meaningful word that popped out here. If you feel like it, maybe you could follow the steps of Martha. Maybe you need to go to Jesus. Maybe you've been sitting in your anxiety and your depression and your fear and your CNN and your New York Times a little too long, right? You need to go, you need to talk. Maybe you just need to ask for an experience of being seen and loved and known and heard. Maybe there's a space in your life right now where you are being challenged by your Lord and your friend to trust him. So we'll give you about 2 minutes for that, and then someone will tell us how we move along. Actually, I'm going to pray. God, thank you. Thank you for your love and your faithfulness. Thank you for this time. Would you do what you do best, Jesus? Would you come and be with your people? Would you shepherd us in this time? In your name.